Hi, I want to briefly talk to you about the 5 books in the center of your Bible and show you some divine orchestration that many of us miss. Let's start with the big picture. The Bible is woven together in a unified manuscript with a narrative arc that all great classics of literature share in common. First is the origin story. Typically, it's a good beginning. The second part of the dramatic arc is the inciting incident. This includes some complication, an arch-villain who shows up, disaster strikes, things begin to escalate. Third, a plan for rescue is plotted. How is the superhero going to save the day? There are twists and turns and some hopes that linger in the background of this conflict. 4, at the climax, characters are developed, soldiers line up for an epic battle scene, the drama crescendos in a hard-fought battle, whether in a clash of opposing armies or with self. And of course, victory of good over evil. And 5th, there's a resolution and redemption where things are put right as characters have been transformed throughout. Sound familiar? That's exactly the story of the Bible. There is a good beginning in creation. A villain shows up on the scene. The fall, complication escalates. Hope is held out for a positive outcome. A plan is hatched. A hero is sent. A battle fought. The good guy wins to rescue the world. There is redemption and salvation from the enemy and an ensuing transformation that follows. This is what distinguishes the Bible from just about any other sacred work. My goal is to show the divine orchestration of 5 books known as Hebrew wisdom poetry that has its own narrative arc with the best of all possible endings. First, the introduction comes in the book of Job. This lays the groundwork. It has a good beginning. A man who's at peace in his environment has wealth beyond measure. Find him acting as priest for his family. He has a respect of the people of his community for his wisdom. Then along comes the inciting incident. Along comes the devil who once upset all that. He takes our character through tragedy and crisis. Job gets bad advice from friends and ends up shaking his fist at God. God speaks out of the whirlwind and says, "Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Tell me if you have understanding." And by the end of the book, God never gives Job an explanation for his suffering. In this 5-volume set, this is the rising action. Life is complicated. Job must learn God is sovereign, that God is in control, and when things don't make sense, he finally learns to put his trust in God. Next is the book of Psalms, where we have David. David exemplifies the trusting relationship with God that Job came to understand at the end of the first of this 5-book series. And so David writes, "When I am afraid, I put my trust in you, O Lord," Psalm 56. And we see that in the midst of chaos and trouble, Psalms closes on a high note, a small mountain peak, in the expectation of a future rescue by Messiah by offering 5 Hallel Psalms of hopeful praises at the end of the book. A doxology. After this brief crescendo, Proverbs will carry us forward as the drama escalates. Solomon, the wisest person to ever live, wrong guy, takes over the throne of his father David. God gives him wisdom for all of us that can help us make it through the complications of life. His great learning gives us the greatest chance of success. Solomon, in his thirst for knowledge, is busy with all of his endeavors to know how everything works. He had his eyes on everything, from boats to birds, from lizards to badgers, ants to roosters, the way of a man with a woman. He studied the wind and precipitation, flora, fauna, cause and effect. The coming battle he would have to face would be with himself. He was so busy paying attention to things that wisdom had granted him, he set his affections on all of those things, taking his eyes off of God and his relationship with God. Solomon had 700 wives and 300 concubines, which meant that he had at least 1,000 distractions, along with all the other things that vied for his attention. David, we know, wasn't perfect by any means, but he did say he had one thing, not 100, not 1,000, but one thing I desire, Psalm 27. One thing I ask of the Lord, this is what I seek, to gaze upon the beauty of the Lord and to seek him in his temple. One thing, while the character in Proverbs has lost his way. The next book in our 5-book series is Ecclesiastes. Let's use Solomon again as the author. Here the dramatic tension rises. The author must find his way through the fog. The real battle is about to be fought. Here I am, an old man. I have tried everything. I had everything. I searched for the meaning in everything. And it was just like chasing after the wind. My chokmah, or my wisdom, in all of my efforts to search out a matter, in my great learning, I found the futility of my ways. All the things I pursued was just like grasping vapor. It was meaningless and fleeting. Havel was vanity. Everything I thought was substantial was nothing more than a puff of smoke. Wine, women, all my worldly pursuits, all the pleasures in the world that money could buy was meaningless. Remember all those proverbs I wrote? Well, guess what? Even that wisdom was worthless outside a relationship with God. Victory would come as he stripped away all that vanity and pride away and restored relationship with God. Everything else was meaningless, modeled to him by his father, David. So in the final episode, the Song of Songs, or the Song of Solomon, is where we find the fairy tale ending in the story, in redemption and resolution. The enemy has been vanquished, but the hero in this case is God, who pursued Israel with the love of a husband for his bride, or like Christ, who loves his bride, the church, and swooped in as the hero of the plot to save us and rescue us from all the striving and deliver us from the emptiness in a life apart from God. Help! Jesus is the one who says to us, "Come away with me, my beloved," reconciling the broken relationship that we might walk in intimacy, having been restored to him. It's kind of weird, but Song of Song has no real ending. And maybe that's just to show that as with God's love, there is no end. For it is he who put eternity in the hearts of man. In conclusion, these 5 books are arranged divinely in the way that shares the story of a good beginning, an escalating crisis, a plot to win, a superhero who comes in for the rescue like a knight in shining armor, a battle won for us, so that we could enjoy his love and his relationship in the greatest love story ever told.